Good morning, everyone. Do you have a favorite building in the Capitol? Well, I think we'd all agree that the Capitol building itself is pretty impressive. And it was on this date, September 18, in 1793, that George Washington laid its cornerstone. Washington, D.C., we had 7 Capitol locations: New York, Philadelphia, Princeton and Trenton in New Jersey, Annapolis, Maryland, York, and Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So lots of moving around. After the Constitution was ratified, the decision was made to have a Capitol in New York City until something more permanent could be built. So check out Federal Hall next time you're near Wall Street. And after some back and forth, the decision was made for a new Capitol district along the Potomac with a bit of land taken out of Maryland, and the street design was made by Mr. L'Enfant. Here you can see the layout of the original D.C. So while D.C. was being built, the Congress met here in Philadelphia for about 10 years. And the name Capitol supposedly comes from the Capitoline Hill in Rome, one of the 7 hills of Rome. So there were lots of designs for the Capitol building, and the one that was accepted by Mr. Thornton was this one. He was inspired by some buildings in Paris, but it was changed by a lot of different architects too by the time it was finally built. So it was this design with some changes. So here's our event, September 18, 1793. Washington laid the cornerstone to the Capitol. You cannot see the cornerstone today because it's deep in the foundation of the building. So this is what it looked like around 1800. D.C. was mostly a collection of buildings and muddy roads back in those early days. Not very impressive. The War of 1812 happened largely along the Great Lakes, Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, but there was some action in Maryland, and the British Army invaded and attacked Washington and set it on fire. So here's a picture of the Capitol building after it was burned, so you can see the burn marks here and there. And the British also tried to burn down the White House. Here it is. And it was yellow at the time, and then after the war, it was repainted white and became the White House. So while that was being fixed, this was the Capitol. This is an artist's rendition of what was simply known as the old brick Capitol. So eventually, the new Capitol was built. Here it is in 1850. And you can see it's much smaller than today's. So as they expanded it, they realized they needed a new dome because the original dome just was out of proportion. And that original dome had been designed by Charles Bulfinch, who had designed the dome in Boston, which is still there today in the Massachusetts State House. So time for a new dome and new construction, and when Lincoln gave his inaugural address, the dome was being built, and you can see the construction equipment in the background. So all during the Civil War, the remodeling of the Capitol carried on. So here it is. This is the rotunda, pretty impressive. And as one walks around the Capitol, down all the corridors, there's lots of cool art. Some of it's decorative, some of it has to do with American history. And I think one of the paintings that really puzzles us is this one. This is called the Apotheosis of Washington. It's in the dome. Looks like something out of the Renaissance. Might remind you of Michelangelo's painting of creation, but there it is. Lots of artists worked on it over time. Another surprising part of the Capitol is the crypt. Originally, they had hoped Washington would be buried here, but nobody's buried there. It's basically a museum. Famous people have lain in state. This is Gerald Ford in 2006. About 35 people have lain in state in the rotunda, presidents and other famous folk. So I think we'd all agree that when we visit Washington, we love to visit these grand buildings, and the Capitol certainly is one of the most impressive in our nation's capital.